You know what's funny about humans? They break every single rule in the cosmic handbook, and somehow, they make it work. My name is Kethvar, senior xenobiologist aboard the Galactic research vessel Starfall, and I have spent the better part of 3 decades studying species across 17 different galaxies. I have cataloged everything from the silicon-based coralings of Nexus Prime to the gaseous whisper folk of the Andromeda Spiral. But humans? Humans are something else entirely. Sir, we are receiving another distress signal from Sector 7 Alpha. My assistant, RYX Quinn, announced from her station. Her voice carried that familiar tremor that always appeared whenever human-related incidents crossed our sensors that I couldn't blame her. The last time we'd encountered humans in combat. Well, let's just say the Vorthak Empire still hasn't recovered from what they call the incident at Kepler Station. What's the situation? I asked, though I already suspected I knew the answer. Vorthak Siege Fleet, 7 dreadnoughts, 43 destroyers, and approximately 200 fighters have surrounded the human mining colony on designation Beta 7. The humans are, well, they're doing that thing again. That thing, right? The thing where they refuse to surrender despite being outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The thing where they somehow turn desperate situations into legendary stories that get whispered across the galaxy for generations. How many humans are we talking about? According to our scans, roughly 300 colonists, including families. Oh, and sir, RYX Quinn's voice dropped to almost a whisper. There's something else. The colony's primary defender is listed as Captain Jax Morrison. The same Morrison who single-handedly destroyed an entire Hive Queen's nest using nothing but mining equipment and what humans call spite. I finished. Wonderful. This should be interesting. I turned toward the main display, watching the tactical readout unfold. The Vorthak had positioned themselves in perfect siege formation, a textbook blockade that should have forced immediate surrender from any rational species. Should have. But humans aren't rational. There's something far more dangerous. They are stubborn. Sir, incoming transmission from the Vorthak flagship, RYX Quinn announced. Put it through. The screen shimmered, revealing the intimidating visage of Commander Jax Morrison, a Vorthak war leader whose reputation for brutality was known across 3 sectors. His reptilian features were marked with the ceremonial scars of someone who'd never known defeat. Research Vessel Starfall. Jax Morrison's voice rumbled like grinding stone. You will withdraw from this system immediately. We claim this world and all its resources under the right of conquest. Commander Jax Morrison, I replied diplomatically. This system contains a registered human colony. Perhaps we could discuss alternative arrangements. The Vorthak's laugh was like the sound of bones breaking. 300 soft skins against my entire fleet? This will be over within the hour. Withdraw, or share their fate. The transmission cut. I sat back in my chair, drumming my fingers against the armrest. 300 humans, 1 mining colony, 7 dreadnoughts. By every military calculation, every tactical analysis, every strategic projection we'd ever run, this should be a massacre. The humans should surrender, beg for mercy, offer tribute. Anything rational species would do when faced with impossible odds. Instead, I watched as the colony's communication array powered up. Sir, we are receiving a broadcast from the surface. It's on all frequencies. They are transmitting to everyone. Put it through. Static filled the bridge for a moment before a gravelly voice cut through the interference. The voice belonged to someone who'd clearly spent too many years breathing recycled air and drinking synthetic coffee. But there was something else there, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. This is Captain Jax Morrison of the Beta 7 mining colony. If you're receiving this transmission, you are about to witness something special. See, the Vorthak seem to think we were just going to roll over because they brought a big fleet. They think we're going to cry and beg and hand over everything we have built here. Morrison paused, and I swear I could hear him taking a long drag from what humans call a cigarette. Well, I've got news for Commander Uglyface up there in his fancy dreadnought. We didn't come out here to the ass end of nowhere to build something beautiful just to hand it over to the first lizard with a superiority complex who shows up demanding tribute. We came here to make a home. And there's one thing you should know about humans when someone threatens our home. Another pause. In the background, I could hear what sounded like machinery being moved, weapons being loaded, and the unmistakable sound of humans preparing for war. We don't go quietly. We don't go easy. And we sure as hell don't go alone. The transmission ended. RYX looked at me with those wide, uncertain eyes that all junior officers develop when dealing with humans. Sir, what do? We observe, I said quietly, and we document. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when humans say they won't go quietly, they mean it. The Vorthak wasted no time. Within minutes, their fighters were screaming toward the colony, weapons hot and ready to demonstrate the futility of human resistance. I watched the tactical display, noting the perfect formation, the textbook approach patterns, the overwhelming superiority of Vorthak military doctrine. Then the surface of Beta 7 erupted. The first Vorthak fighter to enter the atmosphere simply vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was expanding particles of superheated gas. Then another. Then 3 more. Were they using? RYX whispered, staring at the display in fascination that I enhanced the sensor readings, running analysis after analysis. It appears to be mining equipment. They have turned their processors into particle beam weapons, their excavation charges into guided missiles. And those plasma cutters, sir, they're using industrial equipment as weapons of war. No, I corrected, watching another wave of Vorthak fighters disintegrate under the colony's defensive fire. They're using weapons of war disguised as industrial equipment. There's a difference. The Vorthak pressed their attack, sending wave after wave of fighters toward the surface. But something was wrong with their assault. The humans weren't just defending, they were learning, adapting. Each successive wave faced more effective resistance, more creative countermeasures. Commander Jax Morrison's voice crackled over the communication channels, and I could hear the first notes of uncertainty creeping into his tone. All units, press the attack. They are just humans. How are they doing this? That's when Captain Morrison's voice cut through the chaos again, broadcast on all frequencies for everyone to hear. Hey, Commander Scales for Brains. You want to know how we are doing this? It's simple. See, you think this is about military tactics. You think this is about superior firepower and overwhelming numbers. But you are wrong. The sound of explosions echoed through the transmission, but Morrison's voice never wavered. This is about love. Yeah, you heard me right. Love. We love this place. We love what we have built here. We love each other. And when humans love something, really love it, we will burn the whole galaxy down before we let anyone take it away. More explosions. More Vorthak fighters reduced to expanding clouds of debris. You see, that's the thing about humans. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced. But we have got something you don't understand. We have got something worth fighting for. And that makes us the most dangerous thing in the cosmos. I found myself leaning forward, caught up in the raw emotion of Morrison's words. Around me, my crew had stopped their work to listen. Even RYX was staring at the speakers with something approaching awe. So here's what's going to happen, Commander. You're going to keep sending your fighters down here, and we're going to keep turning them into scrap metal. You're going to keep thinking you can intimidate us with your big ships and your fancy weapons. And we're going to keep showing you why that's the biggest mistake you will ever make. The transmission paused, and in that silence, I could hear something that chilled me to my core. Laughter. Human laughter, echoing from the surface of a doomed colony facing impossible odds. Because at the end of the day, we are not just fighting for our lives. We are fighting for our home. We are fighting for our families. We are fighting for the idea that somewhere in this cold, hostile universe, there's a place where humans can build something beautiful and call it their own. Another pause. When Morrison's voice returned, it was softer, but somehow more terrifying. And if you think we're going to give that up without a fight, well, you clearly haven't been paying attention to human history. The tactical display showed the Vorthak regrouping, their initial assault having failed miserably. Of the 200 fighters they'd sent, fewer than 50 had made it back to their carriers. Commander Jax Morrison was undoubtedly revising his strategy, bringing heavier weapons to bear. But something had changed in the atmosphere aboard the Starfall. My crew was watching the display with something approaching reverence. Even I had to admit that what we were witnessing was remarkable. "Sir," our White's Quinn said quietly, "are we just going to watch?" It was a fair question. Galactic law was clear about interfering in local conflicts. But there was something about Morrison's transmission, something about the sheer audacity of 300 humans facing down an entire fleet that made the legal implications seem suddenly irrelevant. "We observe," I repeated, but even as I said it, I was running calculations, analyzing weapon signatures, preparing detailed tactical assessments that would somehow find their way into the colony's computer systems. We document, and we learn. The Vorthak second wave was different. Heavier ships, more concentrated firepower, coordinated orbital bombardment. It should have been the end of the human colony. Should have been. Instead, the humans did something I'd never seen before in all my years of xenobiological research. They adapted their adaptation. The mining equipment that had served as improvised weapons was rapidly reconfigured. Ore processors became shield generators. Excavation tunnels became fortified positions. And those plasma cutters by the 7 moons of Kelrath, I whispered, watching the display. They're not just using their equipment as weapons. They are evolving it in real time. The second wave met the same fate as the first, but this time the humans pressed their advantage. Surface-to-orbit missiles launched from what had been processing facilities. The Vorthak destroyer Vengeance took a direct hit and began venting atmosphere. Commander Jax Morrison's voice returned to the channels, but the uncertainty had been replaced by rage. "Impossible. They are just humans. Prepare the dreadnoughts for orbital bombardment." That's when Morrison's voice cut through again, and this time there was something in his tone that made my blood freeze. "Commander, you just made your second mistake. Your first was thinking we were helpless. Your second was threatening to orbital bomb our home." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of massive machinery moving on the planet's surface. "See, there's something you should know about human mining colonies. We don't just dig holes in the ground. We dig deep, really deep. And sometimes when we are digging deep enough, we find things. Interesting things. Things that make excellent improvised weapons when someone threatens to blow up everything we have worked for." My sensor readings spiked as something massive powered up on the planet's surface. Something that had been hidden beneath layers of rock and metal. Something that the humans had been quietly working on while the Vorthak had been focused on their surface defenses. "What are they powering up?" our White's Quinn asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared at the readings, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The energy signature was unlike anything in our databases. It was crude, improvised, held together with what humans called duct tape and determination. But it was also devastating. "I think," I said slowly, "they have turned the entire planet into a weapon." Morrison's laughter echoed across the communication channels one more time. "Welcome to Beta 7, Commander. Population: 300 humans who really don't like uninvited guests." The planet fired. The beam that erupted from Beta 7's surface wasn't elegant. It wasn't the refined, precise energy discharge you'd expect from advanced military technology. No, this was raw, angry, and absolutely terrifying in its primitive effectiveness. It tore through space like a cosmic scream, catching the Vorthak dreadnought Dominator Square in its forward section. Commander Jax Morrison's flagship didn't explode. That would have been too clean, too quick. Instead, it began to fold in on itself, the hull plates peeling away like old paint as the improvised weapon tore apart molecular bonds with the casual indifference of a mining laser designed to cut through asteroid cores. "By the void," I breathed, watching the tactical display as a ship designed to conquer worlds died a slow, agonizing death. "They have weaponized their planetary core tap." Our White's Quinn stared at the readings, her face pale. "Sir, those energy levels, if they lose containment, the entire system goes nova," I finished. "They are betting everything on one shot." Morrison's voice crackled through the static again. But this time, he wasn't addressing the Vorthak. He was talking to his people, his words carrying across every frequency like a battle hymn written in blood and determination. All right, folks, we have got their attention. Reactor teams, I need everything you have got channeled through the primary conduit. Mining crews, keep those improvised launchers feeding targeting data to the surface cannon. Families in the deep shelters, stay put and keep recording. Someone needs to tell this story. A new voice joined the transmission. Female, younger, with the distinctive accent of someone born in the outer colonies. Dad, the secondary power grid is running at 190% capacity. We are getting plasma bleed through on levels 7 through 12. That's my girl, Zara. Keep her running hot. We only need her to hold together for another hour. Zara Morrison, I realized. The captain's daughter, probably no more than 20 standard years old, managing a power grid that was literally trying to tear itself apart. Most species would have evacuated. Humans. They put their children in charge of the most dangerous job and trusted them to keep everyone alive. The Vorthak fleet was regrouping. Their formation was ragged now. The loss of their flagship had shaken them, and Commander Jax Morrison's voice, when it returned to the channels, carried a note I'd never heard from a Vorthak war leader before: fear. Human colony, you will cease this madness immediately. Your weapon will destroy everything in this system, including yourselves. Morrison's reply came back laced with dark humor. Commander, you are absolutely right. This thing we have built, it's not a precision instrument. It's not safe. Hell, it's barely contained. But here's the thing about humans. When someone threatens our home, we'd rather burn it all down than hand it over to bullies. The surface cannon fired again, this time targeting the Vorthak carrier blood harvest. The ship managed to get its shields up, but the improvised weapon punched through them like they were made of tissue paper. Carrier listed to starboard, atmosphere bleeding from dozens of hull breaches. That's when the reinforcements arrived. MY sensors detected them first. 3 human patrol ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Small vessels, barely qualified as military craft, but they were broadcasting identification codes I recognized. Sir, our YX Quinn announced, we are receiving transmissions from the incoming human ships. The lead vessel identifies as the Wanderer's Rest. Captain Luna Vance commanding. Luna Vance. I knew that name. Former Earth Navy, dishonorably discharged for insubordination, now running supplies to the outer colonies. A smuggler, a rebel, and according to most accounts, someone who'd rather fight impossible odds than walk away for people in need. Her voice cut through the communication chaos like a blade. Veda, 7 Colony. This is Captain Vance aboard the Wanderer's Rest. We heard your call across 3 systems. Sorry we are late to the party. Morrison's reply carried the first note of genuine joy I'd heard from him. Luna, what are you doing out here? Same thing you are, Jax. Reminding the galaxy why you don't mess with human colonies. We brought friends. The other 2 ships identified themselves. The Stellar Nomad under Captain Rico Delgado, and the Free Wanderer commanded by someone who went only by the call sign Ghost. Mercenaries, outlaws, the kind of humans who lived in the spaces between civilized systems. 3 ships against 6 remaining Vorthak dreadnoughts and their escorts. The odds were still impossibly stacked against the humans. The rational thing would have been to evacuate the colony and retreat. Instead, Captain Vance opened fire. The Wanderer's Rest was fast, far faster than anything its size had a right to be. It danced between the Vorthak formation, weapons blazing, drawing fire away from the planet's surface. The other 2 ships followed suit, turning the space around Beta 7 into a chaotic battlefield. But they weren't trying to win. They were buying time. All ships, this is Morrison. I need 10 minutes to recycle the surface cannon. Can you give me 10 minutes? Copy that, Jax, Vance replied, her ship rolling to avoid a barrage of plasma fire. 10 minutes. We will give you 10 minutes or die trying. That's when I understood what was happening. This wasn't about military tactics or strategic objectives. This was about family. Morrison wasn't just defending a colony. He was protecting his daughter. Vance and her fellow captains weren't fighting for profit or glory. They were fighting for the principle that humans don't abandon each other. The Vorthak, for all their military superiority, couldn't comprehend what they were facing. They kept expecting the humans to break, to show fear, to act rationally in the face of certain death. But humans don't break the way other species do. They bend, they adapt, they find ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Sir, our Wyatt Quinn said quietly, the stellar nomad is taking heavy damage. Her port engine is gone. I watched Captain Delgado's ship limping through space, trailing debris and atmosphere. But instead of retreating, he turned toward the nearest Vorthak destroyer and accelerated. This is Delgado to all ships. My drives are shot, life support is failing, and I'm down to emergency power. But I've got one good torpedo left and a really bad attitude. The stellar nomad rammed the Vorthak destroyer at full throttle, both ships disappearing in a ball of superheated plasma. The explosion lit up the system like a second sun. 8 minutes. Morrison's voice cut through the aftermath. I need 8 more minutes. The surviving human ships pressed their attack with renewed fury. Captain Vance's ship was damaged now, leaking atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, but she kept fighting. The mysterious ghost piloted his vessel with inhuman precision, staying just ahead of the Vorthak targeting systems. Commander Jax Morrison's voice returned to the channels, but the authority was gone, replaced by desperate rage. Retreat. All ships, retreat to safe distance. Prepare to glass the planet from orbit. That's when Jax Morrison's voice cut through the static, young and clear, and absolutely terrifying in its calm certainty. Surface cannon charged and ready, Dad. Targeting solution locked on the command ship. Take the shot, sweetheart. The planet fired for the 3rd time, and this shot was different. More focused, more precise. The humans had learned from their previous attempts, refined their improvised weapon into something approaching actual military hardware. Commander Jax Morrison's new flagship, the Dreadnought Conqueror, lasted exactly 3 seconds under the focus beam before its antimatter containment failed. The explosion was visible from 3-star systems away. The remaining Vorthak ships broke formation and fled. In the sudden silence that followed, Captain Morrison's voice returned to the channels, tired but victorious. This is Beta, 7 Colony to all ships. The Vorthak have withdrawn. Repeat, the Vorthak have withdrawn. Colony is secure. Captain Vance's reply was barely audible through the static from her damaged ship. Copy that, Jax. Told you we'd give you 10 minutes. Luna, your ship will fly again. We always do. That's what humans do, remember? We adapt, we survive, we keep flying. I sat back in my command chair, trying to process what I just witnessed. 300 colonists and 3 small ships had faced down an entire Vorthak siege fleet and won. Not through superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but through sheer, stubborn determination and an absolute refusal to surrender what they loved. Sir, our Wyatt Quinn said softly, should we file our report? Yes, I replied, but I was thinking about how to explain this to the Galactic Council. How do you describe the moment when an entire species reveals that they have been holding back, that their primitive colonies and outdated ships are actually something far more dangerous? Morrison's final transmission was broadcast on all frequencies, meant for every species monitoring the system. To anyone listening to this recording, this is Captain Jax Morrison of Beta 7 Colony. Today, the Vorthak Empire learned something that the rest of the galaxy better remember. Humans don't start fights, but we sure as hell finish them. We don't conquer worlds, but we will defend our homes with everything we have got. And we don't ask for much from the universe, just the right to build something beautiful and call our own. He paused, and I could hear the sound of reconstruction beginning in the background. But if you threaten that, if you think you can take what's ours just because you have got bigger ships and meaner weapons, then you are about to learn why the galaxy calls us the species that shouts love at the heart of the world. Because that's what this was about. Love. Love for our families, love for our homes, love for the crazy idea that somewhere in this hostile universe, humans can build paradise. Transmission ended, but the message was clear. The galaxy had just learned that humans weren't the weak, primitive species they've been dismissed as. They were something far more dangerous, They were survivors who refused to accept defeat, builders who would burn down the cosmos before surrendering their dreams, and lovers who would fight the very stars themselves to protect what mattered to them. As the starfall departed the Beta 7 system, I began composing my report. But how do you explain to a galaxy of rational, logical species that humans are dangerous precisely because they are not rational? How do you describe a species that will turn mining equipment into weapons of mass destruction, ram ships into enemy vessels, and literally weaponize an entire planet because someone threatened their home? You call them what they are, the beast that shouted love at the heart of the world. And you make damn sure everyone knows to leave them alone. Because humans don't just survive in this hostile universe, they thrive. And they will remind anyone who forgets that love, when backed by human stubbornness and ingenuity, is the most dangerous force in the cosmos. The story of Beta 7 spread across the galaxy within days, not as military intelligence or tactical analysis, but as something else entirely, a reminder that some species don't just fight for survival. They fight for the right to love, to build, to dream of something better. 3 weeks later, I found myself back at Beta 7, not as an observer this time, but as part of a Galactic Council investigation team. The political ramifications of what had happened were significant. Dr. Kethvar, Captain Morrison greeted me at the colony's rebuilt landing pad. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. The man looked older than he had during the siege, but there was something else in his eyes now, a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Behind him, the colony was bustling with activity. New buildings were rising from the crater-marked ground, and the sound of construction filled the air. Captain Morrison, I replied, extending my hand in the human gesture of greeting. The council sent me to conduct a formal assessment of the incident. Morrison's smile was sardonic. Incident? That's what they're calling it. Among other things, there are questions about the weapons you deployed. The planetary cannon, specifically. Morrison gestured for me to follow him toward the colony center. Come on, I will show you what's at the council so nervous. As we walked, I noticed something remarkable. The humans weren't just rebuilding their colony. They were improving it. The new structures were more efficient, better integrated with the planetary defense systems they'd improvised during the siege. You have been busy, I observed. That's what humans do, Morrison replied. We learn, we adapt, we get better. The Vorthak taught us a lot about ourselves during that fight. We reached what had once been a mining complex. Now it resembled something between an industrial facility and a military installation. The massive bore that had housed their improvised planetary cannon was still there, but had been refined, improved, turned into something that could pass for actual military hardware. The thing is, Dr. Kethvar, Morrison continued, we didn't set out to build a weapon. We came here to mine rare earth elements, nothing more. But when someone threatens your home, you work with what you have got. Zara Morrison appeared from behind a control console, her hands stained with lubricant and her hair tied back in a practical ponytail. At 20 standard years, she'd already become the colony's chief engineer. Dad, the power coupling tests are complete. We can maintain a sustainable firing rate of one shot every 40 minutes without risking core containment failure. Good work, sweetheart. Morrison turned back to me. My daughter. Turns out she's got a talent for turning mining equipment into things that make warships nervous. I studied the young woman, noting the casual way she discussed weapons capable of destroying dreadnoughts. Miss Morrison, the energy readings from your planetary cannon, they're unlike anything in our databases. She shrugged. That's because we didn't build it from a database. We build it from necessity. When you're trying to protect your family, you don't worry about whether something's been done before. You worry about whether it works. A new voice joined the conversation. She's being modest. I turned to see Captain Luna Vance approaching, her left arm in a medical brace, but her step confident. The Wanderer's Rest was visible through the facility's windows, docked at the colony's expanded port. Captain Vance, I acknowledged. I was told you'd remained in system. Someone had to make sure the vultures didn't show up while Jax was rebuilding, she replied. Plus, Zara's been teaching my engineer a few tricks about power routing. Turns out human mining colonies know things about energy management that most military academies never figured out. Morrison chuckled. Luna's ship is running at 30% higher efficiency now. Funny how that works. I was beginning to understand the implications of what I was witnessing. The humans hadn't just survived the Vorthak siege, they'd used it as a learning experience. They were sharing their innovations, spreading their tactical knowledge, turning a single colony's desperate improvisation into something approaching a revolution in small-scale defensive technology. Dr. Kethvar, Zara said, "Would you like to see the technical specifications? I mean, since the Council is going to classify this as a potential threat anyway." I hesitated. Galactic law was clear about technology transfers, but there was something in a young woman's tone that made me curious. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we know how this works. Some bureaucrat on the Council is going to declare our defensive systems a violation of Galactic peace accords. They will demand we dismantle everything, maybe relocate the colony to somewhere safer. Am I right?" Her assessment was uncomfortably accurate. The Council is concerned about the implications of planetary-scale weapons in civilian hands. Morrison's expression darkened. Civilian hands, right? We are civilians when they want to ignore us, but the moment we defend ourselves effectively, suddenly we are a threat to galactic security. That's not entirely. I began, but Vance cut me off. "Doc, let me tell you something about humans. We have been dealing with people who want to control us for our own good for thousands of years. It never ends well. For them. Are you threatening the Galactic Council?" I asked. "Not threatening," Morrison replied. "Educating. See, the Council can demand we dismantle our defenses. Hell, they can even send a fleet to enforce that demand. But they should understand what they are really asking." He gestured toward the colony around us. "They are asking 300 humans who just proved they'd rather die than surrender their home to voluntarily make themselves helpless again. They are asking us to trust the same galactic community that stood by and watched while the Vorthak prepared to massacre us." Zara stepped forward, her young face serious beyond her years. "Dr. Kethvar, how many species in the galaxy have weapons capable of destroying planets?" "Several dozen," I admitted. "And how many of those species have ever used those weapons defensively?" "Only when someone else attacked first." I considered the question. Most planetary-scale weapons were tools of conquest, instruments of intimidation. They were built by empires seeking to expand, not by farmers seeking to protect their homes. "Very few," I conceded. "One," Zara corrected. "Us. Humans are the only species in galactic history to develop planetary-scale weapons purely for defense. We didn't build this thing to conquer anyone. We built it to protect our family." Morrison nodded. "And that's what scares them. Not that we have the weapon, but why we built it. Because if humans will turn an entire planet into a gun to protect one small colony, what will we do if someone threatens Earth? Or the outer settlements? Or any of the million other places where humans have decided to make a home?" I felt a chill run down my spine as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just defending Beta 7, they were establishing a precedent. They were sending a message to the galaxy that human space was now defended by people willing to weaponize entire worlds rather than surrender their homes. "The Council will never accept that," I said quietly. "Then the Council has a problem," Vance replied, "because we're not asking for their acceptance. We're telling them how things are going to be." A new voice joined the conversation from behind me. "And they'd better get used to it." I turned to see a figure I hadn't expected. Captain Ghost, the mysterious pilot who'd fought alongside Vance during the siege. Up close, I could see why he used a call sign instead of his real name. Half his face was marked with the ritual scars of the Titan mining guilds, the hardcore prospectors who worked the galaxy's most dangerous asteroid fields. "Captain Ghost," I acknowledged. "Just Ghost. And before you ask, yes, I have been listening. Hard not to when the conversation's about whether humans get to keep defending themselves." Morrison extended his hand to the scarred captain. "Ghost, didn't know you were still in system. Wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. Besides, wanted to make sure you folks understood what you started here." "What do you mean?" Zara asked. The ghost smile was cold as vacuum. Word spreading. Every human settlement in the Outer Rim has heard about Beta 7. They are asking questions, sharing technical data, figuring out how to turn their own infrastructure into defensive systems. You didn't just save one colony. You taught our entire species a new way to think about protecting our homes. I stared at him, the full scope of the situation finally becoming clear. You're saying this is spreading? Like wildfire, Ghost confirmed. Mining colonies, agricultural settlements, research stations, they're all looking at their equipment with new eyes, asking themselves what they could do if someone like the Vorthak showed up at their door. Morrison looked thoughtful. That's not what we intended. Maybe not, Vance said, but it's what was needed. For too long, human settlements have been sitting ducks for anyone with more firepower and bad intentions. Now they know they don't have to be helpless. I realized I needed to report back to the council immediately. This wasn't just about one colony anymore. It was about a fundamental shift in how humans approach their own security. Dr. Kethvar, Zara said softly, when you file your report, I want you to include something. What? Tell them we are not trying to threaten anyone. We are not building an empire or planning to conquer our neighbors. We just want to be left alone to build our homes and raise our families in peace. She paused, her young face reflecting the same stubborn determination I'd heard in her father's voice during the siege. But also tell them that if someone won't leave us alone, if they insist on trying to take what's ours or hurt the people we love, then they're going to discover that humans can be very, very creative when we are motivated. Morrison put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. What she said, we are peaceful people, Dr. Kethvar. We prefer building to fighting, creating to destroying. But if someone forces us to fight, we don't lose. Ghost finished quietly. As I prepare to leave Beta 7, I realized that my report would change everything. The galaxy had always seen humans as a minor species, clever enough to be useful, but not powerful enough to be truly dangerous. That perception had just been shattered by 300 colonists who'd rather weaponize a planet than surrender their home. The beast that shouted love at the heart of the world had awakened, and it was teaching its children to roar.